Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation and allowing the opportunity to talk to you. Today, I'm going to talk about how to become analytical innovators. So the first question is, who are the analytical innovators and how do you define them? Well, the article that I like most is not mine. It was written by MIT Sloan Business School. This was written a couple of years back in 2014, and it is available online. You can read it. It's a very good article. What they did was they surveyed over more than 2,000 companies, and then they analyzed how are they using data in their decision processes and analytics. And what they did was they categorized the companies into three different categories. Some of them are analytical challengers, some of them are analytical practitioners, and some of them are analytical innovators. In this presentation, I'm more focusing towards analytical innovators. By the way, as a homework, it's a good exercise. If you go back home, look at your own company, and do a self-assessment. So where do you lie in this spectrum? Are you an analytical innovator yet or not, or are you still analytically challenged? If you are analytically challenged, what is the difference there and what you need to do to become analytical innovator? So some of the things that they have described analytical innovators, you can see that they have analytical culture, and not only a culture that has a mandate from the senior management, and they put a lot of value on the data. The other thing that we see a lot in the analytical innovators is that they have three things. First thing is analytic talent. So people say analytic talents are data scientists. How do you define data scientist? It's a tough question. I'm a data scientist by profession, and I've been a data scientist for a long time. So I was data miner when I started my profession, which later on became advanced analytics, which later on became data scientist. The good thing is with each change of title means a huge increment in salary. So I'm actually waiting for the next title change. So the first thing is analytic talent, which is hard to find. The second thing is the culture and organization. We are already talking about the culture which derives innovation, which allows you to do experimentation, which allows you to do some failures. And the last thing is technology and data and how to use it. Now I'm going to touch each and every aspect briefly, and then I'm going to talk about one of the use cases that we did recently with one of our customers, and how we use this thing to drive the culture within the organization, and how to drive analytical innovation, just to give an example. So the first thing before you start that we have been stressing by everyone since the morning is to start with the business objective. So I, as a data scientist, we don't do things because analytics is interesting. Yes, we like it, we enjoy it, we like to play with data, but at the end of the day, you need to have some actionable insights. And it's very important that it is actionable. Data science or data on its own has no value. The value will come based on the action that you take. That action could be a change in process, that action could be a campaign, could be anything. So all the insights have to be actionable. If it's not actionable, there's no value. So always start with business objective and the business questions, and how are you going to productionize it, and how are you going to take actions on it. Now, when we talk about innovation, people say that's a new way of thinking. But innovation could be anything. It could be you can have a better process, so you can be more agile. But then if you are more agile, that means you are decreasing the time to market, or you are reducing the time that a process takes. I always ask the next question to the company, OK, we will reduce your process time, but then that means you have extra time. So what are you going to do in that extra time? If you do not know what you're going to do in that extra time, then there's no value in reducing the time right now. So you have to think ahead. Yes, I will have more time. My analysts will have more time on their hands. So what are they going to do next? So think on that perspective, because if you know what they're going to do more, that's the ROI in reducing the time. So always start with the business objective. Now, starting with the first one, which is analytic talent. So who are the data scientists? It's hard to define them, and everybody have their own opinion about them. Once I did a Google, which is like, what are different types of data scientists? Yeah, and there were some people who said there are 2 types. There's some people who said there are 4 types. Then there were one who was saying, no, there are 6 types. So everybody have their own definition. What I like about one of the definitions that I've seen is not, again, not my definition, but done by O'Reilly and Strata, where they said there are 4 types of data scientists. And not only that, they figured out that for each role of a data scientist, what are the skill sets that are required. By the way, this article is available online as well. That's a very good read. And I think most of the people in this room who are data scientists they belong to the section which is covered by the business person. So you are more related to business side of data scientist rather than R&D side. And very important over here is if you're more related to the business, then the most important knowledge that you require is not machine learning, it's not the programming, it's actually the business knowledge. Which most of the time people say, no, it's actually the other way around. But that's if you are an R&D type of data scientist. If you're business focused, then you need to first understand the business, because business does not know analytics. So they're going to talk to you in business terms. Now you need to understand those business terms, do your magic, but then keep the magic here, go back to the business, and talk to them in their language. So when we say tell stories from data, yes, you have to tell stories from data, but the stories should be in the business language. So any data scientist, they need to have a good communication skills where they can explain the work that they have done in a language that the business can understand. Because if the business cannot understand, then they can't take action, and they can't change the process. So if you want to be a change agent, you need to explain what you just did to the business in their language. The other thing which is missing in this thing, in this diagram is every data scientist needs to be creative. If you're not creative, you cannot innovate, right? There are people whom you can tell, yeah, do this, 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 and they will do it very well. But if you want them to think out of the box, if you want them to find insights, if you want them to become a discovery person, they need to discover new things. You cannot discover old things, right? You cannot innovate old things. You need to improve stuff. So you need to find new findings. So you need to be creative. You have to think out of the box. Maybe new techniques can be applied. Maybe we can look at the same data in a different way. So you have to be very, very creative. So you need to find a person who knows stats, who knows machine learning, who knows maths, who knows big data, who knows programming, who should be good at communications. He should be good with, should be creative, and he should be good with visualization. How many of you fill all these boxes? Oh, there's one person in the back. Good job. Can you send me your CV? So that's the tough thing to find. Hence we call them, yeah, it's difficult to find a data scientist. So what you need to create a team. What will the team do? Team will cover all these check boxes. You can't find all of these things in one person. So that's how the data science teams are done. Now, when I started working, when I was a data miner, what used to happen, and this has actually happened with me, the business came to me and said, yeah, we want this thing. You can, okay, fine, I need data. So I was working in my own bubble, the business working in their own bubble, and IT is working in their own bubble. So when we started working on that, I said, okay, fine, you need this data. I went to the IT. Can I get this data? And they said, yeah, give me functional specifications. Being a data scientist, I hate documentation. But I then wrote something, gave it to IT. IT gave the data back to me. I started working and said, there's something wrong in the data. This doesn't make sense. I went back to the IT and figured out, yeah, when I wrote functional specs, I said table A join table B. Those who know SQL, this means join is inner join. I meant left outer join. And I said, you didn't write left outer join. I said, oh, OK. So then, again, version 2 of functional specs. Get the fresh data out. Now, this is far from innovation. Most of the time is there miscommunication. And most of the time that was spent in understanding the requirements and getting the right data. And everybody's working in a small bubble. So we are far from agility. That's not how analytical innovators work. Analytical innovators are much more agile. So you don't do works over months, you do works over weeks. So you deliver everything. So when you get any requirements, you make sure you understand them, and you deliver what they want, not what is happening over here. So how do you work on this? First thing is you break the bubbles. How do you break the bubbles? So some of our customers, what they did, they get rid of the cubicles. So where we work, yeah, we have our own cubicles, our own offices. They say, no cubicles, no desks. Every desk is a hot desk. Let the project team sit together. So what you do, you create a small project teams. What we call them as pods. Uh, we also call them 2 pizza teams. The reason they're called 2 pizza teams, that's because when you order dinner for them, you only need to order 2 pizzas and 2 bottles of Coke. That's enough. If that can't feed the whole team, it's not a pod. It's a very big team. If you want to be agile, you have to have very focused, small teams. So that team is cross-functional. It's not just data scientists. It has data engineers. It has business people. It has IT. It has data SME. It has the business SMEs. And why? Because they are such small, they work so close to each other that there's no miscommunications. You don't have to email stuff. You just communicate around a round table, and you work together. You work as a team. It's much more collaborative environment. That's what you want. The other thing is, since the talent is scarce, so you cannot work on each and every problem. So what you do, you prioritize the business problems. Now, usually, when we prioritize business problem, what we do, yeah, high, medium, low. So you go to the business. So what's the priority of these things? And everything is high. So I don't like that. I always tell them prioritize it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not high, medium, low, because then everything is high. So you start with very high priority, then go that way. Once you have created the pods, the next thing is to become analytical innovator. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to now jump towards the use case and explain how this works in reality. So this is where we are working for a bank on the credit risk. And all the banks have credit risk models. So the idea was, can we improve our existing credit risk models? So improving credit risk model for a bank by 1 or 2 genies is a huge, huge thing for a bank. They say, is there any way that we can improve? So sure, let's start. So what we did, we applied approach where we said we will have all the data from customer transactions and interactions and observations. Bring all the data together, and we will use what we call a multi-genre analytics. What is a multi-genre analytics? Multi-genre analytics is a methodology where you apply analytical techniques in a sequence. So you apply analytical techniques in a series. At the end of that, you create variables that feed into the final model. The final model may still be a GLM or logistic regression-based model, but the input to that, the variables that you create, is based on a sequence of analytics that are done. The idea is to get better understanding from customer interactions and customer transactions. So as an example, so one of the areas was merchant segmentation. So we were looking at the lifestyle of the customer, and we thought, well, the people who shop at Prada must have deep pockets, so they can't default. So let's find high-end customers and high-end merchants. So what we did clustering. Yeah, that's what segmentation is. So then we found out the high-end merchants. Then how to use it in a GLM model? We applied the next rule, which was we looked at the sequence of the transactions. So we applied time series analysis after the clustering and see how the transactions of the customers are varying over time. So we applied time series analysis to that. Now the output of time series analysis, then we applied the data wrangling on top and created variables from there, which fed into the GLM model at the end. So that's just one area, had clustering, had time series analysis, and the data wrangling on top. So that's how it is, sort of like a stream, a series of analytics done to go into the final model. So we did that. We did a path to default where we combined, instead of looking at the variables, what we did was we created a lot of events in the customer interaction and transactions. So it could be late payment, it could be default on a loan, it could be a new credit card ordering. So it could be a series of events. But we don't look at one event, we look at a sequence of events. Because event alone is useful, but if 3 events are occurring together, is much more powerful. So we did look at a sequence of events and then converted them into a variable to be used in the GLM model. Similarly, we did a lot of time series analysis, and we also did the graph analysis, because assuming that you work for a company and the company credit rating goes down, that means there's a high potential that you will lose the job. So if the company rating is going down where you work, then your rating should go down as well. So we look at the graph analysis and see how the credit risk transcends in the graph of in the network. And we combine all of them. So we were not working on one model, we had 3 models. And all these things, some of them were important for one model, some of them became important in the other one. But we didn't know from the beginning which will become more important for one use case or the other one, because we had to try it first. It's all experimentation, right? It's a discovery. We didn't know whether this approach will work or not. We had a series of hypotheses that were done. So we're working on 3 different models, and all 3 of them we were able to improve the Gini by 3 to 5 Gini points, using clustering, SACs, path, Bayesian, as well as the graph and GLM, all of this. Now, doing all of this in an agile manner, how long will it take to finish? For us, it was 10 weeks. And it was not a big team. We still had 2 pizza team. The total team was 3 data scientists, 1 data engineer, 1 data SME, and 2 credit risk SMEs. That was the whole team that worked, and we were having constantly going over the requirements, understanding what the customer wants, and moving ahead from there. So right from the very beginning, so brainstorming all the ideas, from data exploration to data understanding, from discovery, finding the insights, and also going towards evaluation. By the way, this was not the only insight that we improved the credit risk model. There were a number of other actionable insights that were delivered to the customer, who then used them to create triggers for the credit risk. Final thoughts about how to become analytical innovators. So the first thing in anything is that, as I said in the very beginning, you need to have executive sponsorship. This goes beyond saying. So there's a very famous story, a textbook story that we have, is when everybody's on LinkedIn, and everybody has used people you may know. The fact of the matter is, the data scientist who created this application, he went to data engineering part, and the engineer said, we're not going to put it in production. He went to CEO and said, you told me if there's a problem, what we should do. The CEO went in and said, let's try it out. And that became a big success. So you need, for change of culture, it's always top down, so you need executive mandate. But there are times when you do not have an executive mandate. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something for the organization or something for your manager? The other thing is, since you are working with different types of data, whether it's structured data, it's unstructured data, loosely coupled data, tightly coupled data, you have to allow for some failures. When we work in data science, usually 8 out of 10 things that we try, they do not work. But we still have to try them. Hence, we want to try it in an agile manner. I'm not saying that you try something for 6 months and then say, sorry, it didn't work. If you try something for 2 weeks, it didn't work, yeah, that's fine. Experiment, it doesn't work. So use an agile, fail-fast approach that allows you to succeed fast. And as Martin said in the morning, yes, it's all about data. So embrace the new data, embrace the unstructured data, embrace social data, but do not forget the existing data that you already have. The value is in the integration of all the data, and then using multi-zone analytics on top of that. Very important, take the insights into production. Unless you productionize the insights, there's no value. And lastly, always measure everything, because measurement is data. If you do not have data, you cannot have analytics. And to promote this culture, make sure that you reward your employees for experimentation and encourage them to the use of the data. It's a social thing. If an employee knows and he is rewarded for what he's doing and for thinking out of the box, he will, and other people will follow him a lot. So it's a very high, and very important to reward your employees to be more analytical innovators. I think I'm coming towards the end of time. Thank you very much.